Let's do this. It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome into the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, if you want to head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching on X, the Everything app, __ Jonathan Smith, if you want to watch the show there, or maybe you're listening via that Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you find your apps. Today's show is brought to you by Holiday World. We love Holiday World and Splash in Safari. We're going to be giving away tickets here in about an hour and 20 minutes, so 11:20-ish. I'm going to give them away after my interview with Zach Hicks, which should be over around 11:20. That's the goal. We'll see if that happens or not. So make sure at around 11:20 that you are tuned in and ready to go to potentially win those Holiday World and Splash and Safari tickets. Now, Pacers Thunder Game 2, it was not fun. I talked about it all day yesterday, and I didn't even get to all my thoughts. I have many, many thoughts on that game, obviously, as 2 hours wasn't enough for me to cover all of them. And I want to start with the shooting from the Indiana Pacers. They took a lot of threes, and this is a very good three-point shooting team, right? You know, they've shot the ball better from three than any other team that played in the playoffs this year. They make a lot of tough shots. They shoot the highest percentage on corner threes compared to any other team in the NBA, and the Oklahoma City Thunder give up more corner threes than any other team in the NBA. So I figured that the amount of threes that the Pacers took in this series would go up. I think it's gone up a little bit too much, though. They took 43s last night, or Sunday night. They only took 82 shots. Like, that's just a lot. I don't really like that. Almost half of your shots can't be threes. And I want to really complain about it, but this is what the Oklahoma City Thunder do to teams, right? Boxes and elbows. They don't allow teams to get into the paint. It's really backwards from what a lot of other NBA teams want to do, right? Like, they don't want to give up open threes because three is worth more than two. And the Thunder are like, nah, we'll give them up. We're just not going to give you any layups whatsoever. And if you do get into the paint, then you've got, one of either Chet Holmgren or Isaiah Hartenstein just waiting for you at the rim. They're like, yeah, come on in here. If we don't block your shot, it's probably going to be because, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander or Lou Dort or Alex Caruso or Cason Wallace or Jalen Williams or anyone else on the Thunder roster comes down and swipes the ball away. So they make life very difficult on the interior of the defense. But if the Pacers want to win this series, they have to get more layups. They have to get more easy buckets, right? They didn't have a paint point in the first quarter of Game 2. That's not sustainable. They only had 34 total paint points in Game 1, and they had 34 total paint points in Game 2. This is a Pacers team that was, top 10 in the NBA this year in terms of their ability to score points in the paint. They have to find a way to generate some offense in the lane. They've got to find some way to do it, because easy buckets or easy shots, I would classify as one of two things: an open three, which the Pacers have done a decent job of getting, or a layup. Even if it's contested, like, these guys are so good and so athletic around the rim that even a contested layup is a good shot. And the Pacers haven't really gotten any of those. They haven't gotten any of them. And that's problematic. 34 paint points in games 1 and 2 is just not enough. And the Pacers are a great shooting team, but taking 43s is just too many when you take 82 shots. Almost half of them. It's still bizarre. And part of that is an Oklahoma City Thunder defense thing. Part of that is, getting late into the shot clock and not really having any other options. And so you chuck a three, and, they've just got to be better on offense, which is really weird. I thought that they would find a lot of success offensively in this series just because they are such a good offensive team. But really, their strength in the series has been the defense. So if you want a positive coming out of game 2, because I feel like all I did yesterday was tell you all of the bad things. They didn't get Siakam the ball enough. Halliburton wasn't very good. They missed shots. They took too many threes. They did this bad. They, let Shai Gilgeous-Alexander get wherever he wanted. They, didn't, close out to Caruso or Aaron Wiggins very well, and blah, 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 blah. Just here's all the bad things. They did improve one thing, and this is a very positive thing coming out of game 2. They didn't turn the ball over 25 times. They only turned the basketball over 15 times in game 2. That is obviously a major improvement. And I think that's the cap. It might be too many turnovers, 15, but if the Pacers can hang out somewhere between like 12 and 15 turnovers a game, because, look, the Thunder are going to turn the Pacers over because that's just what the Thunder excel at doing. So they were much better in terms of taking care of the basketball, which, you would think that if you got more shots up, which I guess they didn't, they were around 82 for both games, you would score more, but it's not what happened. Part of that is the pace issue. And thankfully, the turnover thing was kept in check. Hopefully that's something that continues. If they want to win the series, it's going to have to continue. And this was a step in the right direction. Another good thing, this Pacers defense has been pretty good. They also forced 14 turnovers. If you were fighting to break even with this Oklahoma City Thunder team in terms of your ability to turn them over and them turn you over, like if you're both around the same number, like that is a major win for the Indiana Pacers. So they turned it over less and they turned the Thunder over more. The issue is they didn't capitalize on those turnovers, which isn't a super surprising thing because the Oklahoma City Thunder had the best transition defense in the NBA this year by the numbers, and the Pacers only scored 17 points off those turnovers. They only had 9 fast break points. By the way, the Thunder only had 4 fast break points, so there's another positive for the Pacers. But when the Pacers force a turnover, it has to up the pace. Like it has to. They have not controlled the pace of these first 2 games. It's been the Thunder run and get a bucket, and then the game slows back down. And then the Thunder run, and they get a bucket, and then the game slows back down. That can't continue. If the Thunder want to run, that's fine. The Pacers just have to keep the running going. And only 9 fast break points for the Pacers. It's not enough for them to win. They have to have more fast break points than that. They had 9 steals. That's 9 live ball turnovers. And to only get 9 fast break points off those, it's not good enough. They only scored 17 points off of, 14 forced turnovers. Like that number needs to be in the mid-20s. The Pacers struggled, again, to raise the heart rate of the game. The pace was too slow. Right? And there's a few reasons for that. One, the Thunder don't pursue offensive rebounds with their guards. Like their guards get back. That they did that in game 1. They did it in game 2. Like they'll let Hartenstein or Chet or Lou Dort. He'll crash in from the corner from time to time. But for the most part, they are not running to the glass. You said, well, Jonathan, if they're not running to the glass, then how come they had 11 offensive rebounds in game 2? Pretty simple. A lot of their offensive rebounds in game 2 were long rebounds. That's what they were. Like they weren't, jumping up over, guys consistently, because it did happen from time to time, but they weren't consistently jumping up over Miles Turner or Pascal Siakam and coming down with the rebound. I think that happened like 3 or 4 times, but most of them were, hit the heel of the rim, bounce out 20 feet to an Oklahoma City Thunder guard. There is a clear and obvious effort from the Thunder to get back when a shot goes up. And that is part of why they've been able to slow the pace down. Like the Pacers haven't been able to grab the ball out of the net. 1 pass to Halliburton, 1 70-foot pass over the top to Pascal Siakam, who then gets a layup. The Thunder have completely eliminated those buckets that the Pacers got against the Knicks. And part of that's because the Knicks attacked the offensive glass pretty heavily. But the Thunder have completely eliminated those easy buckets. The other thing that they're doing, the Thunder, is they play so hard. Both of these teams play so incredibly hard. And the effort from both the Thunder and the Pacers to get back and not allow easy buckets after a turnover has honestly been one of my favorite things to watch in this series. It is such a theme. Both teams are doing everything that they can to make the other team score in the half court. The issue is the Thunder's half court offense is better than the Pacers so far in this series. And it's because they have the best player. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has gotten whatever he wants so far in this series. 38 in game 1, 34 in game 2. That's not surprising. But the Thunder's half-court defense, to me, is the story of the series so far. Even in game 1. Like, if the Pacers had to go against a set defense on that Halliburton game winner, I don't think that they would have scored. Like, if I'm playing the Thunder, I am absolutely not calling a timeout to, like, set up a final play because it's not going to work against a set Thunder defense. I want to play and live in the chaos as much as possible. And when you're in the half-court setting, it's just a little bit tougher to play and live in the chaos in the way that the Indiana Pacers want to. And the first 2 games have been half-court games. They have been. And if that continues, then the Pacers will not win the series. They have to find a way to speed up the game. And part of that is going to be scoring off the live ball turnovers that the Thunder commit. Don't run to the corners. Okay? Like, trust me, you're going to get your threes up in the half court when you can't break the paint. Like, when you force a turnover, please run not to the corner, to the rim, and finish at the rim. Because, like, you're not getting many layups in the half court setting. So I would like to see, instead of Obi Toppin running to the corner, like, there's one play where I think Halliburton has, like, he steals it, or maybe it was Nembhard, and it's a 3-on-1. And you got one guy running to the corner. The other guy isn't filling the lane properly, and there's no space. So the one Thunder defender, pretty sure it was Lou Dort, he could defend both guys. And so your only option now is to throw it to the corner. And then by that point, this incredibly fast Oklahoma City Thunder defense is back. And it goes from a potential easy bucket in transition to, oh no, now we have to, like, pull it out and reset our offense and try to score against a set Thunder defense, which is the last thing that the Pacers want to do. So the Pacers have to be better at scoring off those live ball turnovers that they force. We saw both teams throw out, like, a little bit of zone. Like, the Pacers went to it. I think the Thunder scored on, like, 2 or 3 possessions, and they're like, enough of that. Let's go back to man-to-man. It felt like the Pacers were kind of searching for defensive answers late in that third quarter. That is, to me, the biggest issue coming out of game 2. Like, they have to find a way to slow down the Thunder offense. I still think that the magic number for the Pacers is 110. The Pacers can score 110 points. They're going to have an excellent chance to win any game in this series. Okay, game 1. How many did they score? 111, and they won. Game 2, 107, and they lost. They also gave up 123. It's like that has to be a little bit better. Okay, offensively, I still think that the Pacers are going to be fine. Maybe I have in too much confidence in Tyrese Halliburton and Rick Carlisle to find a way to kind of get this Pacers offense going. Tyrese Halliburton, I just think he's too smart of a player to not eventually figure out what this Thunder defense is trying to make him do. And Tyrese Halliburton, I think he's going to find a way to be a little more impactful in game 3. I think he's going to look to score more. The Thunder are making him a dribbler. It's really kind of interesting because most guys want to dribble. Tyrese Halliburton does not. He wants to get off the ball. Like, he wants to he wants to catch the ball and move it to whoever's open. And the Thunder simply aren't letting him do that. And so he's got to look to score a little bit more. Like, his mid-range pull-up game is really good. He finishes at the rim really well, and he's going to have to lean on those things a bit if he wants a chance for the Pacers to win this series. And I think that that's finally going to click going into game 3 because I just think he's too good and too smart of a player to not be able to figure out how to break through this Thunder defense. My concern, how do the Pacers slow down the Thunder offense? You can't allow Caruso and Wiggins to hit 9 threes like they both did in game 2. They had several possessions where they were just kind of chasing the basketball around because Shai Gilgeous-Alexander broke the paint very easily, and that led to those easy shots for their role players. Like, that is the biggest thing. The Pacers defense is the biggest thing that has to be fixed going into game 3 because, look, they're giving up 123 points. Good luck scoring 124 against this Thunder defense. Like, they have to get more stops. And if they get more stops, then they can bring the tempo up. And that'll lead to more easy buckets. Here is Miles Turner after game 2 talking about their defense and how that kind of starts their pace and how they have to be physical on that side of the ball.
Physicality is a big part of this series. You know what I mean? I think that we got to establish ourselves physically, just as they've done. See what's going to get called, see what's not going to get called, and see how the overall tone of the game is going. And it's got to be a much better collective effort, I think, defensively. I think we did a little bit of a better job in that first half, but it's got to be 4 quarters of sustained defense.
4 quarters of sustained defense, according to Miles Turner. That is the key. And that's always been the thing for this team. Like, you know that they're going to find a way to score. I thought that they missed some open shots early in that game too. And, the defense just wasn't good enough for long enough. And, I get it. Thunder are really good. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is an absolute stud in every sense of the word, but they have to find a way to get stops, because if they get stops, then they can play fast. And if they can play fast, then they have a chance. They didn't play the game as fast as they wanted to in game 2. And that can be fixed by not taking the ball out of the net repeatedly. So the defense has to be better. We got a big-time loaded real Jonathan Smith show for you today. Zach Hicks is going to come on at 11 because Colts training camp, I believe, starts today. I've got thoughts on the Colts. There's guys who have been released by teams that the Colts, I think, should 1,000% go and try to get. I got a nice little Tyler Warren take. It's kind of about Tyler Warren, but it's kind of not. The NBA reacting well. I appreciate it. So a lot of things to get to today, but I appreciate when people take criticism and respond quickly. We saw the NBA do that in game 2. I'll tell you what I'm talking about when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
If it's in today's sports world, it's here. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back. Woo! Let's try that again. Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on Twitter, __ Jonathan Smith. If you want to follow me there, maybe you're listening via that Indy Sports Ticket app. Here in about an hour, we're going to give away tickets to Holiday World and Splash and Safari, so make sure you're tuned in at around 11:20. As soon as my interview with Zach Hicks is over, we're going to give away Holiday World and Splash and Safari tickets, so make sure you're tuned in at around 11:20 for your chance to maybe, just maybe, win those tickets. Now, the NBA took some flack for, and rightfully so. The NBA Finals don't feel like the NBA Finals. There's no aura, as the kids would say, around this game. And in the past, the NBA would put out those courts with the NBA Finals trophy, you know, the Larry O'Brien, like underneath the logo at center court. And you knew when you turned the game on that it was important. And the NBA, we know, still understands the importance of making a game feel important. And we know this because during the in-season tournament, they put those different courts out on the floor, and it's got the NBA Cup on it. And when you watch it, like, yeah, this is an NBA Cup, you know, group game or whatever. And for some reason, they don't do this with the NBA Finals. Like, if you watch game one, it didn't say Finals anywhere on the court. It didn't say, you know, there's no Larry O'Brien trophy anywhere on the court. And so, you know, the NBA community on Twitter is a very interesting place. But there was an uproar. Why isn't the Larry O'Brien anywhere in sight? And the NBA responded in game two. And they put not one, but two awful-looking CGI Larry O'Brien trophies on the court. And it caused quite the uproar. NBA fans had been complaining about how the NBA didn't have the trophy underneath the logo at the center court, like at half court, like they used to. So the NBA responded quickly, and they put those two ugly Larry O'Briens on the floor. And people made fun of it, rightfully so, because it looked awful. There's no other word to describe what it looked like. It was so awful that they took the two Larry O'Briens off the floor and they replaced it with NBA Finals presented by YouTube TV. And that looked better. It did. And look, I didn't think it looked great. But with that being said, I do appreciate the NBA reacting to something quickly and doing what it can to appease the people that watch and have an opinion on the games, whether that's how the game is officiated. Adam Silver takes a ton of crap, and he should, because he's not a great commissioner. I think he lets the players get away with way too much. But he listens to people, which I appreciate. Or he listens to the fans of the NBA. The officiating in the playoffs and during the regular season, that changed because of Adam Silver. The finals, the finals trophies on the court, you know, Silver was like, hey, people are right. We got to have it somewhere. And so does it look great? No. But once again, I appreciate the quickness of the reaction to fix it. The NBA All-Star Weekend. What did people call for the entire All-Star break this year? They called for an America or USA versus the world All-Star format. What are we having this next year? We are having an NBA versus the world NBA All-Star format. And look, like I said, I don't like Adam Silver. I don't think he's very good at his job. With that being said, he has done a very nice job of listening to people and trying to give them what they want, which I can appreciate that from a commissioner. Anyway, the Indianapolis Colts start training camp today. A couple of players got released yesterday. Jair Alexander from the Green Bay Packers and linebacker Jermaine Pratt from the Cincinnati Bengals. Jair Alexander was a great cornerback, like one of the 10 best in the NFL when he was healthy for the Green Bay Packers. And I think the Colts should 1,000% go try to bring that guy in. Will he want to come play for the Colts? Probably not. He'll probably end up in Kansas City or Buffalo or some other place like that. Because as of right now, like I just don't know who's going to line up opposite Charvarius Ward. But I'm willing to bet that Jair Alexander is way better than they are. Whether that's Jalen Jones, who had a pretty decent year last year. But I got to be honest, I really don't want Jalen Jones to be cornerback number 2 for the Indianapolis Colts. Maybe it'll be the guy that they took out of Iowa State in the 3rd round. Maybe it'll be Juju Brents, who they took in the 2nd round out of Kansas State a few years ago, but he can't really stay healthy either. None of those guys that I just listed are better than Jair Alexander. And I get it. Like, the dude's been hurt. But when he's been healthy, the dude's been awesome. And you need corners that can play man-to-man. Because that's what Lou Anarumo likes to do. And Jair Alexander can line it up and he can play man-to-man. The Colts don't have... And so, yeah, I think that the Colts should go and take Jair Alexander. Now, that probably won't happen because, like I said, Jair Alexander's going to have many suitors. And why in the world would he pick the Colts over a team like the Bills or the Chiefs or the Ravens or any other team that has like legitimate Super Bowl holds? The Rams. So Colts probably won't get him. I do think that Jermaine Pratt is a legitimate option for the Indianapolis Colts in terms of like late additions right before camp. The Colts don't have a ton of depth or talent at linebacker. Okay? Like they don't. We knew going into the draft that linebacker was an area of concern. They didn't really address it. Jermaine Pratt could be a legitimate option for them to go out, bring him in, and see what he can do. He was top 10 in the NFL in tackles last year. He played under Lou Anarumo in Cincinnati last year and was, obviously very good. Top 10 in tackles last year. I wouldn't be surprised if Lou Anarumo went to bat for Jermaine Pratt and brought him in. Plus, the Colts are currently dealing with some injuries at linebacker right now. Zaire Franklin has an ankle issue. Jalen Carley's is currently sidelined with a shoulder issue. The Colts need help at linebacker. We've known this all offseason. And this is a player who had success last year playing for Lou Anarumo, a guy who can come in, help the rest of these younger linebackers that are a little more raw get acquainted with this new Lou Anarumo system. And even if the guy doesn't play, like he gives you some real depth. He gives you depth from a guy that you've actually seen play consistent snaps in an NFL game, in the system that you're running, and you've seen him have success in it. So I think it makes all the sense in the world for the Colts to go out and try to add a guy and try to add Jermaine Pratt amidst the injuries and the lack of depth in the linebacker room. I know that the Colts say that they like some of their younger linebackers, and for all the flack we've given Chris Ballard over the years, I will give him this. The Colts have done an excellent job developing later round draft picks and a pretty good linebacker. So maybe I'm in the wrong here, and we should just trust the Colts to continue to develop these 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th round linebackers. But I am always of the opinion of I would rather have a known commodity over an unknown commodity. So go get Jermaine Pratt. Go get a guy who has had success in the league before at an incredibly high level. And yeah, go get him. Bring him into the building. And let's get this defense rolling because the offense isn't going to be very good this year. Speaking of the offense, Tyler Warren, I hope he's good. But there's 2 players for the Indianapolis Colts who want him to be good more than I do. And that's A.D. Mitchell and Leatu Latu. A.D. Mitchell and Leatu Latu need Tyler Warren to be good, especially Adonai Mitchell. Everyone is over the moon about Tyler Warren, and rightfully so. The dude was a beast at Penn State. He fell to 14 somehow, some way. And that's a big deal for Leatu Latu and A.D. Mitchell. They won't have to worry about a thing if he's good. The amount of care that people will have, especially in A.D. Mitchell, because he plays on the same side of the football. Leatu Latu is probably a little bit different. But have you seen Toy Story? The first one? There's that very dramatic slow-mo scene where Andy drops Woody and utters the words, "I don't want to play with you anymore," because he has Buzz, who is cooler than Woody. And I get it. Buttons over a drawstring. Makes sense. To me, at least. Buzz was the new shiny toy. And because of that, Woody didn't get the love and affection that he probably deserved. It's the same thing here. A.D. Mitchell and Leatu Latu don't need or want the attention, especially if they haven't improved from last year to this year. If Tyler Warren shows up and he's good immediately, then the development of A.D. Mitchell and Leatu Latu takes a back seat. That storyline, at least, takes a back seat to the Tyler Warren story. Because people are going to be so enamored with that dude. And you're going to have people on Twitter spouting off, "Oh, I told you, the Colts just needed a tight end. They just needed a tight end. As soon as they got a tight end, man, oh, man, tight end." Meanwhile, Adonai Mitchell has like 8 catches, 3 drops for 47 yards, 12 games into the year, and all the A.D. Mitchell apologists all of a sudden disappear and you don't hear from him anymore. So A.D. Mitchell wants for Tyler Warren to be good, to take some of the pressure off of him. I'm sure Chris Ballard is hoping for the exact same thing because, A.D. Mitchell just wasn't very good last year, wasn't very tough, didn't take responsibility for making mistakes. And you can't, I would want, if I'm a GM, I would want for that player to be paid as little attention as possible. So Tyler Warren, obviously he needs to be good for Daniel Jones and potentially Anthony Richardson. We got a report on him yesterday from Albert Breer on the Rich Eisen show. And he talks a little bit about Anthony Richardson and the issues with his shoulder, says something very interesting about this quarterback battle in general and who he kind of expects to start week 1 for the Indianapolis Colts. I've got that audio for you when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
Did you know the Hoosier Lottery is the only lottery named after its people? That means you.
Me?
Yep, and you.
Me?
Yes, and all of you.
Us?
That's right, and we believe all of you could enjoy some play in your day. Even better, when you play Hoosier Lottery games, you support Indiana. Since 1989, you've given back more than $7 billion to good causes across our state.
All right.
When you think of it like that, there's so much to play for. Hoosier Lottery, champions of play. Must be 18 or older to play. Please play responsibly.
Attention! If you owe money to the IRS, this is an urgent message. The IRS is cracking down by sending out collection letters, garnishing paychecks, seizing bank accounts, and putting liens on homes and businesses. They call it enforced compliance, and you better watch out because penalties and interest on unpaid taxes compound daily, making it even harder to get out of debt. Don't let tax debt destroy your life. You need to call Optima Tax Relief, America's #1 tax resolution firm. They're experts in taxpayer assistance programs that can save you thousands if you qualify. A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau, Optima's resolved over $1 billion of tax debt for their clients. Let them fight on your behalf, helping to put your tax problems to rest. Call the tax professionals at Optima now for a free consultation.
Call 800-337-4548. 800-337-4548. 800-337-4548.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
It may, one day, be a must-listen for sports enthusiasts.
Yeah, and monkeys might fly out of my butt. Uh-oh.
The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. Head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching on X, _ Jonathan Smith. If you want to follow me there, you can watch the show there as well. Or maybe you're listening via that Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you find your apps. Today's show brought to you by Holiday World and Splashin' Safari. We're going to give away tickets coming up after the Zach Hicks interview at 11. Should be done sometime between 11:20 and 11:30. So make sure you're tuned in then for your chance to win some tickets to Holiday World Splashin' Safari. In addition to that, Indy Sports Ticket also has Teddy Bear Patrol going on right now. Throughout the month of June, we are collecting teddy bears that our local area law enforcement agencies can give to children involved in accidents and other traumatic situations. Please check out IndySportsTicket.com for a link to donate or drop off your new teddy bear donations at our studios or at Hensley Legal's office in Fishers or at one of, I don't know how to say that, Pusini's Pizza Pasta 7 locations. The Indy Sports Ticket Teddy Bear Patrol is sponsored by Hensley Legal. Donate now at IndySportsTicket.com. I've actually got one of these bears. I got it when I was like 2 or 3. It's a story that will never be forgotten. My parents left me and my older brother and my at the time like very, very baby sister at home with my Papa Chuck. Shout out to my Papa Chuck. Love that guy. And so they leave us and we had this shed in the backyard and my Papa Chuck was dealing with my, little baby sister. And my brother and I decided to run around behind the shed, and my older brother Caleb would go back there all the time and play around and do different things. And he convinced me to go back there with him. Long story short, I get stuck behind the shed. And my Papa Chuck, large man, comes out and he can't get behind the shed to grab me. And so he calls the police. And so the police are there. They're trying to get back behind the shed. I'm 2 years old. So I'm small, able to fit in all these different places that normal sized human beings can't. And so they're trying to get back there to grab me, and they can't really do it. My parents show up, and there's police cars out in front of the house. Panic shoots through their body. Like, oh no, like what in the world happened? And then they run around back, and they realize what's going on. And the best part about it is, if you talk to my Papachek, he's like, if they'd gotten you out before your parents had gotten home, they would have no idea that this ever happened. And so eventually they get me out, and they gave me one of those bears. I've still got it. His name is Fred. So make sure you donate some teddy bears if you can do that. It's a really good cause. Anyway, Aaron Rodgers to the Steelers happened, and I promise I'm getting to that Anthony Richardson shoulder injury update from Albert Breer. I just got to clear it out a little bit. We're going to get there. Just give me like 2 minutes, okay? Aaron Rodgers to the Steelers happened. I'm very intrigued to see how this is going to go. I like Mike Tomlin. He's one of the best coaches in the sport. Never had a losing season. He's won a Super Bowl. Did it with Big Ben. He hasn't really had an above-average quarterback since. And the Aaron Rodgers thing is interesting because it's definitely an upgrade over the, Mason Rudolph and Will Howard options. I like the Steelers' defense. I think DK Metcalf is a better, more stable option than George Pickens. Able to make big plays down the field, good contested catch guy, good after the catch guy. I know they're going to run the ball well because their offensive line's good, and Arthur Smith is their offensive coordinator, and that dude wants to establish the line of scrimmage, and he wants to run the football, which will take some pressure off of Aaron Rodgers. I think if Aaron Rodgers can be 75 to 80% of who he used to be, then the Steelers are a playoff team. And I don't know how the Indianapolis Colts are going to make the playoffs this year because the AFC just has too many quarterbacks that are better than what the Colts have. And the rest of the Colts roster is pretty meh. And you say, oh, well, Jonathan, if they can just win the division, then it's no big deal. They're not. You think they're better than Houston? They're not better than Houston. I don't know if the Colts are going to be better than Jacksonville this year. I seriously, and there's a world where the Titans, who have drafted pretty well for these past couple years, if Cam Ward's good, then maybe the Colts are like a 4-13 team, which would actually probably be the best thing for them, but that's neither here nor there. And before we jump into this long list of quarterbacks in the AFC that are better than what the Colts have, making that climb to potentially making the playoffs so incredibly tough, here is Albert Breer, who went on the Rich Eisen show yesterday, talking about the Anthony Richardson shoulder injury and just kind of giving us a very quick update on what Anthony Richardson has going on in terms of that shoulder.
But it was the second day of OTAs that they shut him down. He's going to go visit with Dr. Neil Elatrash. I believe that's going to happen this week to go and get it checked out.
Oh, you don't want to hear that name, man.
And Elatrash was the one who did the surgery initially. So it's one of those, Rich, where it's like, when you're talking about like the soreness coming back in the shoulder, and no, he hasn't had surgery yet, but he's going to have more opinions on it. It just gets you worried, so I would say I take both of them very seriously because, anything to do with a quarterback's throwing shoulder, elbow, wrist, whatever is serious. But, when it's a repeat thing, that's where it's like, oh boy, so yeah, I think it seems, at least right now, like there's a really good chance Daniel Jones is going to be the starting quarterback for the Colts in week 1. And Anthony Richardson faces a lot of uncertainty going forward.
Albert Breer right there on the Rich Eisen show yesterday talking about Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones. He says in that clip that the expectation right now is for Daniel Jones to be the starter week 1, and there is a lot of uncertainty with Anthony Richardson going forward. Now, we'll see what ends up happening. I hope he throws today, even if it's just a little bit, because, look, the Colts ceiling with Anthony Richardson is significantly higher than what it is with Daniel Jones playing quarterback. And, look, if Daniel Jones is the starting quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts this year, they're going to have, like, at best, the 13th best quarterback in the AFC. Here is the list of AFC quarterbacks that I would argue are currently better than both Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones, whoever ends up being that week one starter. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow. Those are the 4 best quarterbacks in the NFL. I would take Aaron Rodgers over both of those guys. I would take C.J. Stroud over both of those guys. Trevor Lawrence, I would take. Bo Nix, definitely. Geno Smith, absolutely. Justin Herbert, abso-freaking-lutely. Tua, probably yes. And Drake May. I would take all of those guys over either quarterback that the Indianapolis Colts currently have on their roster. You said, well, Jonathan, what about Riley Leonard? Come on. The Colts have, at best, the 13th best quarterback in the AFC. That's kind of problematic. And here's the thing. If Cam Ward's good, then the Colts could have the 14th best quarterback in the AFC. Like, would it really surprise you if Cam Ward, number 1 overall pick, a guy who was the number 1 overall pick in partiality because of circumstances of this not being a great quarterback draft class, but at the same time, he's still a guy that probably would have gone top 10 last year. Like he's a legitimate top 10 talent at the quarterback position, given everything that Kevin Potts told us about him, leading up to the NFL draft. If Cam Ward's better this year than Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones, like, would that really be surprising? Wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. And guess what? Even if he's not, even if Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones are better than Cam Ward, you're still probably not making the playoffs with the 13th best quarterback in your conference and the 3rd best quarterback in your division. So many things have to break your way if you're going to do that. So are the Colts going to make the playoffs this year? Probably not. Are the Colts, going to have a winning record this year? Probably not. Because when you go up and down their schedule, they have the lesser quarterback in like every game. And I look, trust me, I get it. Okay. Like, it's about more than just the quarterback. But, quarterback is by far the most important position on the field. Like, the Dolphins, week 1, have the better quarterback. They do. The Broncos, Bo Nix is better than whoever's playing quarterback for the Colts that week. Cam Ward, week 3, Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson probably going to be better than him that early in the year. And then they're at the Chargers. Yeah, Matthew Stafford, definitely taking him over either one of these Colts quarterbacks. Geno Smith in Vegas. Yeah, probably going to take Geno over either one of these Colts quarterbacks. Kyler Murray, week 6. Yeah, I think I'd rather have Kyler Murray than Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones. And then they play the Chargers. Yeah, Justin Herbert, think I'm going to take him over whoever the Colts have. And it's Cam Ward again. So Colts will probably have the advantage there. It's week 8 at that point, though, so maybe Cam Ward is kind of starting to trend up a little bit. We'll see. And then they're at Pittsburgh. Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, I think I'd take Aaron Rodgers. And then they play Atlanta, Michael Penix, which we didn't see a ton of him last year, but I think I'd take Michael Penix over, what the Colts have going on in their quarterback room. And then week 12, they're at Kansas City. Obviously, we're going to take Mahomes. And then they get Houston at home, and it's C.J. Stroud. And obviously, we're going to take C.J. Stroud over the options of Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones. And then you're at Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence, new head coach, who got the best out of Baker Mayfield. I think he's going to do a really good job in Jacksonville with Trevor Lawrence. So I'm probably going to take Trevor Lawrence in that situation over what the Colts have. And then they're at Seattle, Sam Darnold, who, just had it, who was a top 5 quarterback statistically last season. We'll see how he looks in Seattle, but I think I'd take Sam Darnold. I would take Sam Darnold over Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson. And then it's San Francisco. It's Brock Purdy. I don't think that's really much of a question. And then it's Jacksonville and Houston again. The Colts are going to have the lesser quarterback in 15 of their 17 games this year because they don't get to play the Browns. Seriously, like the Browns are like the only team in the NFL that I look at them. I'm like, I feel pretty confident saying that the Colts have a better quarterback room than what the Browns have going on. But maybe not. Maybe Shedeur Sanders proves everyone wrong and he ends up being amazing. One way or the other, the Colts don't have the talent at quarterback to potentially make or to make the playoffs. They don't. They're just not good enough in that room to have any sort of chance of winning the division, or they're definitely not going to grab a wild card. Okay, and they have a new owner now, and I look, if they don't make the playoffs this year, I don't think that that's the worst thing in the world. I think Jim Irsay wanted to fire Chris Ballard last year, but he just wasn't healthy enough to sit through all of the interviews. That is no longer an issue. Carly Irsay is officially in charge of this Colts franchise. That means they can fire Chris Ballard. They've already fired a bunch of people in the front office, and they can restart. And that's really what this franchise needs. Okay, like Chris Ballard's been trying to throw just duct tape on this thing every year, trying to keep it going. And it hasn't worked, clearly. They need a real restart. And I think that they're going to get it this offseason. I think they're going to be bad. I think they're going to go like 4-13, 5-12, 3-14, whatever it ends up being. And so when that happens, they'll be able to fire Chris Ballard, finally. They'll be able to, Shane Steichen will probably go with him. And they'll probably be done with Anthony Richardson after all of this shoulder stuff. Again. So they're going to be able to go hire a new GM, a new head coach, and hopefully draft a new quarterback if this year's quarterback draft class is as good as everyone thinks that it's going to be. And so you can clean house, hire positions and do all those things. You can reset the franchise and do a real rebuild. They can do a real legitimate rebuild if that happens. You can trade all of your older players and you can restart the franchise. Okay. And hopefully, if you have the 3rd, 4th, or 5th pick or whatever it is, you have better quarterback luck than you had last time. Taking Anthony Richardson, who I would still argue was a better selection than Will Levis would have been. So, that's kind of what it feels like we're headed towards this NFL season for the Colts. Zach Hicks is going to join me here in about 5 minutes or so, and it's always fun having him on just because he's a smart dude who does a really good job of breaking down the Indianapolis Colts. So very much looking forward to having Zach Hicks on coming up here in about 5 minutes. Coming up here in about 25 to 35 minutes, we're going to give away tickets to Holiday World and Splash and Safari. 317-228-1430. That's the number. We're going to give away tickets in 25 to 35 minutes after the interview with Zach Hicks. We will be sending those bad boys out. So make sure you're tuned in through this next segment for your chance to win those Holiday World tickets. When we come back at 11, Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts. It's going to be good. Don't go anywhere.
This is the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. You can head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching it on X, _ Jonathan Smith. If you want to watch the show there, you can follow me there as well. At Zach Hicks 2 to follow this next guest. But before I bring him on, really quick, after this interview, we are giving away tickets to Holiday World and Splash and Safari, because today's show is brought to you by Holiday World and Splash and Safari. So make sure you've got your phone out. 317-228-1430 is the number. We're going to give those out after this interview. Now joining me is the one and only Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts, who does a great job covering this Colts team. Zach, what's going on, man? How are you?
Doing pretty good, man. Doing pretty good. I've noticed the fandom for the Colts right now is kind of really tuned in to the Colts here in June. It feels like the first time in a while. I mean, we've seen over on Locked On Colts just the viewership go crazy right now for anything training camp. So, yeah, we're talking Colts in June right now. I didn't expect it to be this pumped up for the fan base about the Colts, but here we are. Maybe it's just intriguing seeing more Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones drama, I guess, is what I should say.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that there's two reasons for that. I think, one, people are psyched about Tyler Warren. I think like that draft pick, I think, really injected some life into the fan base. And then the other thing is obviously Richardson and Daniel Jones. Let's start with Anthony Richardson's shoulder. What was kind of your reaction when that news broke?
Yeah, it's tough, man. You know that you and I are two guys that have obviously supported Richardson throughout his career with the Colts, just in terms of like getting him on the field, letting him play through the rough times early on, and getting him ready to go. And hopefully he can be that franchise quarterback they drafted him to be. But I don't know if you're in the same opinion as I am, but it's just like, I mean, how many off seasons can we do this? How many seasons can we do this where he's just dealing with injuries, you know? And it's one thing if he were looking like a superstar when he was on the field, you know, if it maybe not even a superstar, maybe if he was just looking just more like a positive impact player, like his rookie season, then maybe you can excuse a couple injuries here and there. Like, you'd still want him to be healthy, but it's easier to sit through them. But when he's coming off the season that he just had, and then he had the hip injury last year, he had the back injury last year, he had the benching last year, and then we're hearing about this shoulder again, which, I mean, this has been 2 straight off seasons where the shoulder has been an issue for him. You know, he had the surgery obviously in year 1. Last off season, he missed a couple practices because of the shoulder. This year, he's going to miss at least 4 to 5 practices. Who knows if that goes into training camp? And apparently he's going to re-meet with the doctor who did the surgery about, you know, this nagging pain. So it's like, we're dealing with the shoulder. That's going to be a constant issue. The back has been an issue since high school. The play on the field hasn't been good enough to like just excuse all this. And it's getting close to the point where even people like me, who were like this guy's biggest supporters coming in and really seeing the vision with him as a prospect and as a player, I'm kind of wavering, man. And it's like, you know, the NFL, you can't wait forever. You really can't wait forever. I think the Colts giving him those first 2 years and being patient with him, as patient as they have been, I think is more than most players get, even for a top 5 pick. We've seen, you know, first round quarterbacks been given up on way quicker than this, you know, than Richardson. So I'm not counting him out. I still believe in the talent. I still think there is something there with him. It's just, you can't give me lack of production and injuries all the time. Like, so then you have nothing to build on outside of the occasional flashes that you only see in his couple games he plays each year. So yeah, it's tough, man. We've been calling on Locked On Colts recently, like people like, I guess like haters and people who have like jumped off the bandwagon of him, but it's like, I have to have a reason to stay on, you know, and I love the flashes. I love what he could be, but I can't be sitting here saying that for how many more years, you know, like at some point he's got to stay healthy and he's got to be on the field and he's got to produce. And so far we just haven't seen that through 2 years, and year 3 is not off to a great start with yet another injury in a camp battle with the quarterback that we want him to be able to beat.
Joined by Zach Hicks, the Locked On Colts, talking Anthony Richardson. And the concerning thing about the injury, it's not like he got hit. Like this was it seems like he was just throwing and all of a sudden it tightened up or hurt or whatever. So that is an even greater cause for concern. Zach, am of the opinion that the Colts are going to be awful this year.
Maybe, yeah.
Outside of the Titans games, they're going to have the lesser quarterback in every other game that they play. And that is usually a recipe to definitely not make the playoffs, which means you're not going to win your division. And I think if that happens, I just think that the Colts need a real full reset. I feel like ever since Andrew Luck retired, Chris Ballard has been trying to just throw duct tape on this Colts team. And it just hasn't really worked. So I think at the end of this year, I think we're going to get a new GM, a new head coach, and a new quarterback. That's kind of where I feel like the Colts are going. And a lot of that has to do with Richardson and the injuries and the fact that he's probably not going to be the guy.
Yeah. And I'll even go one step further. If you look at the money on this team that's guaranteed to players after this upcoming season, the only contracts on the roster that have guaranteed money left are, I think, DeForest Buckner, Charvarius Ward. I think Cameron Bynum has a little bit. But after that, every other player is out of guaranteed money. Michael Pittman Jr.'s contract runs out of guaranteed money. Quentin Nelson is out of guaranteed money in 2026. Jonathan Taylor's is out of guaranteed money. So if we're talking hard reset, it can be more than just the GM, head coach, and quarterback. It can be a lot of the veteran players on this team as well, with the roster just heading in a more youthful direction. I'm not too sure they're going to be terrible. If we look at last year, I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find a team that had worse quarterback play than the Colts outside of maybe Tennessee and I guess Miami, because when Tua was out, the quarterback play was so awful that it was that had to bring them down to the bottom. But the Colts were definitely bottom 5 in quarterback play last year, but they were able to string together some wins despite having a bottom 5 defense as well. Kind of a crazy combination, honestly, having a bottom 5 defense, a kicker who couldn't make it past 50 yards, and bottom 5 quarterback play. And they were, 7 wins, 8 wins, whatever. I think they were 8 wins last year.
Yep. 8-9, so undefeated in 2025.
Yeah. Undefeated, baby. Let's go. I do think they'll get to around 6, 7, 8 wins. I do think that that's probably where they'll end up, but I don't think either of us are going to fool ourselves and say that's good enough. And I don't even think Carly Ursay is going to fool herself and say that that's good enough either. So I do think we'll see some changes after this year, because I'm with you. I don't think this is going to be some playoff season. I don't believe in Daniel Jones leading the way. I don't believe in Anthony Richardson staying healthy. Honestly, I don't believe in either of these guys staying healthy. If you look at the injury history on both these players, it's a CVS receipt that we're looking at with both these guys. And I even said it on Locked On yesterday, and I think Jake wanted to have a whole show on it basically because it was a hot take. But I think Riley Leonard starts at least one game this year just because of injuries with these other two guys.
I completely agree with that.
When's the last time we've seen a full season out of either of them? They both get banged up quite a bit. And Riley Leonard's going to get out there, and who knows if he could stay healthy, because the way he plays is very reckless too. And then we'll see Jason Bean out there. But all jokes aside,
hey, Jason Bean, let's go. I'm all in on Jason Bean. Let's do that.
I do love me some Jason Bean. Jason Bean's one of my favorite players since college. But I mean, all jokes aside, I do think there are some things that we can look at this Colts team that can be optimistic. I do think the defense by the end of the season is going to be much better than it ever was under Gus Bradley. I think there are some pieces on offense that could be good as long as they stay healthy. But like you said, at the end of the day, it comes down to quarterback play. And even if you and I disagree on the floor with this team because of the quarterback play, I think we both agree on the ceiling with this quarterback play, where you're not winning a division with Daniel Jones at quarterback, not winning a playoff game with Daniel Jones or even Anthony Richardson at this point at quarterback, unless we see this sudden turnaround from Richardson that we just haven't seen yet. So yeah, I'm with you. I don't think it's going to be a playoff caliber season from the team. I would be quicker to bet under 6 wins than I would be over 9 wins for this team this year.
Totally agree. Even though to your point, with what you think the floor is, I didn't expect the Colts to be any good when Gardner Minshew was the starting quarterback, and they every week mattered. And honestly, if Daniel Jones can just make every week matter. Like week 18, they're on the road against Houston, and we're like, hey, if we win, then, we're in the playoffs or whatever. Then like that would be not an accomplishment, but that would greatly succeed what my expectations are for this Colts team. Joined by Zach Hicks, the Locked On Colts, talking about the Indianapolis Colts in this offseason. And you brought up the defense being much better than it was last year, which I agree with. Jair Alexander is now on the market. That is a dream that is not going to come true in terms of the Colts going out and getting him. But Jermaine Pratt hit the market yesterday, a guy who was top 10 in tackles last year under Lou Anarumo. Zaire Franklin's got the ankle injury. Jalen Carlisle, he's got the shoulder. What do you think are the chances that the Colts go out and potentially sign Jermaine Pratt?
Yeah, I think there's a decent chance there. The Colts have been linked to Pratt since his name popped up on the trade market back in January, which, 6 months now, he's finally getting his freedom from the Bengals. It's crazy how they do business. I'm always annoyed by how long they wait to do everything. But yeah, Jermaine Pratt's finally free. He's on the open market, and it does make sense for him to reunite with his former defensive coordinator. He had a lot of success with Anarumo, and I don't think it's I don't think it's just a coincidence that his trade request came the second that Lou Anarumo was fired. I do think there was some reasoning there from Jermaine Pratt. So yeah, I do think a reunion makes a lot of sense. I think the only pushback I really have with it is one being that what kind of role would be here in Indy if all things stay healthy, with the current linebacker room, because I do think Jalen Carlisle and Zaire Franklin complement each other really well. One's a good run defender, a tackle machine, makes some plays on the ball, more a run and chase type guy. The other guy's a good pass cover guy, former safety, has a much better feel in just that aspect of the game. And I think those two players complement each other well in what Lou Anarumo wants his linebackers to do. So where does Jermaine Pratt really fit in that? To me, he's a bit redundant with Zaire Franklin in terms of he's at his best when he's a run and chase guy, can make some plays on the ball, play closer to the line of scrimmage, not really be asked too much in the passing game. So that redundancy might hurt. And for a team that's only going to deploy two linebackers on 98% of their snaps, it is tough to kind of fit a Jermaine Pratt in there. I do think he would raise the floor of the starting linebacker room just in terms of on rundowns. Having Pratt and Franklin is probably better than having Franklin and Carlisle, but I would still probably like Carlisle being out there on passing downs, especially if the Colts go to more nickel and dime, which has one linebacker on the field instead of two, especially in those dime looks. So it could be a weird fit, and Jermaine Pratt might want more snaps elsewhere. But right now, Jermaine Pratt, the biggest thing he's got to look at is how do I maximize my payday for when I hit free agency for real next offseason? Because the Bengals kind of hurt his ability to make money this offseason by holding him until June. So he's got this whole year to just bring back up his stock and hit the market again. Does he want more snaps with a defensive coordinator he's not familiar with, or go back, reunite with Anarumo, get back into a role that makes sense, especially with both the starting linebackers here hurt, and maybe just re-earn that stock that he had the last couple of years and get a nice little payday. So all that said, I think it's realistic. The Colts are going to be in on Pratt. I don't know if they ultimately close the deal. I'm sure there'll be 4 or 5 teams in on him. But I think the Colts are a realistic suitor just because of that familiarity and partially because of the injuries they currently have at linebacker too.
Joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts, talking about the Colts maybe going out and signing Jermaine Pratt, who was released by the Bengals yesterday. You've been doing this writing series over on SI.com this summer where you scout Colts players. Who has been your favorite guy just to kind of go back and watch from last year?
Oh man, let's see. Of the ones I've done, I mean, Alec Pierce was a fun rewatch just because he finally hit what we thought he could be in terms of just his NFL fit of being this downfield, just elite vertical threat. He had all around a great season last year. He's such a limited player, but he's limited to just his couple elite things. And, not every player needs to be a superstar to be effective in the NFL. You can be just a high-end elite role player. And I think that's what Alec Pierce is. So he was really fun to rewatch. But honestly, I think Nick Cross was probably my most pleasant surprise when I rewatched, because I kind of went into that being like, okay, I'm going to see a really good run defender, a guy who makes most of his tackles, but the pass coverage is probably not going to be all the way there. And I thought his pass coverage was probably better than expected. I'm not going to say he's, an elite cover safety. I think some of his deep center field stuff needs some work, but I was pretty impressed overall with his fielding coverage and the way that he made some plays on the ball. And I think with Lou Anarumo, he's going to be more involved in everything, more disguised, more like in a rotation with Bynum in terms of who's deep and who's underneath. And I think he's going to fit really well. So I came away really pleasantly surprised with Nick Cross. He was probably the guy I come across, like, of like the non like star players I've done in this series. He's probably the guy where I see that star potential more than like some of the others. A lot of other players I had more concerns with. Cross, it was more so just like get better with your overall feel on the field. And honestly, it just needs more snaps. And he's been healthy, unlike some other players that we say need more snaps. So I think Cross is the sky's the limit for him. I think he can be a really good player with the Colts, and he's already a pretty solid player. I think he can take another step next year and become a legit star for the defense.
Joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts, talking about this upcoming Colts season. So you did one as well on Jalen Jones, and I want to talk about him for a minute, just because obviously Travarius Ward, like that is cornerback number one. Cornerback number two seems like it's going to be Jalen Jones, but they did take Justin Wally with that third-round pick, and apparently the Colts really like him. How do those two kind of compare? Did you notice anything from Jalen Jones going back through last year's tape that makes you think that he could be a little bit more than what he was?
Yeah, Jalen Jones, I think, kind of falls more in that Alec Pierce category where there are pretty big limits on what he can be in the NFL, but the couple things he does really well, he does them so well to where it's like, I want this guy starting or some kind of role on defense. I just don't want him to be my star player on the outside. And that's kind of where the Colts have let him down the last 2 years, is they've been putting him as their number one corner. And it's not really his fault, or really like it is kind of the Colts' fault, but like the plan wasn't for him to be the number one corner the last 2 years. It's just obviously guys in front got hurt, guys left, whatever it was. But he got thrust into a role that he doesn't have the physical talent to be that guy in the NFL. He doesn't have the footwork, the explosion, the speed, the quickness to be a number one corner that can match up with the Nico Collins of the world, with the top receivers. So Justin Jefferson was one that beat him a couple times in that Minnesota game. He's just not that guy. And that's perfectly fine. You don't have to be that guy in the NFL. So I think him reverting more to a cornerback 2 role where he can be on the side that gets a little bit more help coverage, especially with Ward traveling with number one receivers this year. I do think that Jalen Jones is going to be put in more positions to have success. Now, the thing is, though, when we're looking at what Lou Anarumo wants out of his cornerback, he wants big, long guys that can run. And Jalen Jones is big and long, but the foot speed is a little bit of a concern, especially that ability to turn and run down the field without playing like crazy off coverage. Justin Wally is much better a fit for this system than a Jalen Jones. So I do think we'll see a little bit of rotation on the outside there. The Colts are very high on Wally, but I don't mean any of this to be a slight on Jalen Jones. I think his zone coverage ability, his zone eyes, especially in cover 2 and cover 4, is fantastic. I really love the way that he makes plays on the ball and separates man from ball when in tight quarters there. I think he has some really good aspects to his game. It's just there are limitations with him. I just don't think he's ever going to be, a highly paid like star outside guy. But I think he's going to be a really good utility player for a defense. And now he's finally in a role where he can be a utility player. So I'm excited for that for him. It's a lesser role, so it might hurt his payday down the line. But I do think that him being like maybe like a 70% starter on the outside, rotating with Wally and Kenny Moore when they do base defense on like 5% of the snaps, I think that's a better fit for him than being the number one guy that has to run with Nico Collins and Justin Jefferson and all these top dudes like we saw last year. So I expect a better season from him, but I don't expect him to make some big jump to be like a Pro Bowl player, because I just don't think that's really in the cards for him in the future.
Joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts, talking about this upcoming Colts season. Last thing, and I had a take today that I would like to run by you. Have you've seen Toy Story? I am assuming.
Oh yeah, dude, that came out. I was born in the late '90s. It came out in the late '90s. Like I had all the VHSs. Like
Same.
obviously.
Same. Yeah. So, there's the scene in the first Toy Story where like it's like super dramatic, slow motion, and Andy's like, I don't want to play with you anymore, and he drops Woody. And like I don't blame him. Buttons are way cooler than like a little drawstring,
Oh
and
yeah, for sure.
And for me, I think A.D. Mitchell is dying to be Woody, and he really hopes that Tyler Warren is Buzz because he was really bad last year. He was like he wasn't very good, or he didn't meet the expectations. That's probably the more polite way to say that. And like I'm sure there's some part of him because I'm not sure how much he's going to play this year. Like if Tyler Warren shows up and he's awesome, I think we're very quickly going to forget about A.D. Mitchell. What do you kind of think about that, and what are kind of your expectations for Mitchell this season?
Yeah, I think aside from Anthony Richardson, is there a more polarizing player on this roster than A.D. Mitchell? I would be shocked if there is.
Yeah, there's not. Yeah.
I know Leatu Latu is a little bit polarizing for some people, but I think overall people are positive on Latu. A.D. Mitchell, either people think he's going to be a superstar or think he should be cut. And I think it's more people saying he should be cut than it is thinking he's a superstar. And yeah, the first year was pretty rocky for him. It wasn't a great first season, but there is still something about him that I can't fully quit. So maybe I'm a little bit more on the optimistic side. Like it's kind of like an Anthony Richardson where it's like you have a young player who has mastered the hardest part of the position. Like A.D. Mitchell is awesome at beating press and he's awesome at separating and getting open. It's just everything else is tough. It's like with Richardson where it's like he's awesome with the deep ball, great at breaking sacks and creating positive plays, but like it's everything else that quarterback should be able to do that he struggles with. And maybe that's kind of where this is coming from, where like with Mitchell, I still see the vision. I still see what he can be. And maybe he does need, a little step back this year in terms of role and playing time. And hopefully the three guys in front of him don't get hurt whatsoever this year. So he can have more of a rotational role and be more consistent in that rotation rather than being, a guy who has to slot in as a slot player, has to fill in for Michael Pittman Jr. for one game, has to fill in for Alec Pierce for one game. Those are different roles that, they can mess with a young player who's just not ready for the moment yet. So overall, I still have optimism for him because, again, like this guy can get open in the NFL. Like he really can, especially against man coverage. He can get open. It's just we got to catch the ball. We got to play stronger at the point of attack. We have to attack the ball in the air. We have to create more after the catch. Like there are a lot of growth areas for him, but he's one of the youngest players on the team. He showed a little bit last year that like the flashes I'm still intrigued by. So as long as he can get out there, like, again, if everyone stays healthy in front of him, if he can get out there for like 30% of the snaps and just win those snaps that he's on the field in terms of like, don't be a liability, don't drop easy balls and win a couple 50-50s this next season, I'll call that a good season for him. Like, I just want to see growth from him. I want to see a step forward. I want to see him stay healthy and just keep improving on. Like we were just talking about Alec Pierce earlier here. Like Alec Pierce through 2 seasons, everybody's calling him a bust and calling him a bad pick. Now we're going into this season being like, oh, thank God we still have Alec Pierce. Like this guy was awesome last year. So it does take time. And Mitchell's way younger than what Pierce was when Pierce was drafted. I think Pierce was 22, like nearly 23 going into his first year. Mitchell was 21 for most of last season. So it is a younger player here that we're talking about. He looked shell-shocked a lot last season, but there is a lot of talent there. I'm not ready to throw him away like Andy was throwing away Woody, even though I understand. I understand Tyler Warren love. Tyler Warren is the shiny new toy for sure.
He is.
But I'm just not ready to throw him away yet because I do think there is something there with him. It's just, can he have a good enough offseason to put together? And that's a big thing. I know I'm rambling a little bit
here,
you're
good.
Like, when it comes to players, man, like people overestimate how much coaching plays into these guys getting to where they need to be. Coaches can tell them what they need to work on, but when we're talking about like guys taking that step, it's what they do in the off season going into training camp and going into the mini camp. Bernhard Raimann, I think, is one of the greatest examples. After his rookie season, it wasn't a great year. He came in late in the year, was getting run over by stronger pass rushers, but then he came in his second training camp and he was 15 to 20 pounds stronger, like all muscle, looked a lot sturdier, worked on the things that were his deficiencies, and he's going to be a top 10 paid left tackle in football here soon. I don't know how soon, but eventually this offseason, hopefully with the Colts. And that's a guy who really improved in that time there. So if Mitchell can come into camp looking like a different player, just ready to roll, completely focused, and working on those deficiencies, I think the sky is the limit for him. I think he can be a really, really good player. It's just he's got to take those positive steps and stay healthy. That's the biggest one. Stay healthy. If he can do all those things, then I'm not done with him yet. I think he can be a good player.
I agree. Zach Hicks, a Locked On Colts, joining the show. Last thing for real here, just on Mitchell. I think we have been spoiled as NFL fans. Like, you see Jamar Chase show up and be awesome immediately. Justin Jefferson was awesome immediately. We've had like this run of receivers showing up as rookies and like being great. That's not normal at all. Like, the adjustment from playing receiver in college to playing receiver in the NFL is one of the steeper adjustments, right? Because the route trees are different. The way that like corners press a lot more in the NFL than what they do in college, and so on and so forth. And so it takes time. Like, I think that's part of why it took Alec Pierce 2 years, because playing receiver in the NFL is very different than playing it in college when you're usually the most athletic guy on the field, and that allows you to get open. I'm with you. I'm not throwing away Mitchell quite yet. Very intrigued to kind of see what he looks like this year. I'm with you, though. Like, if he plays 30 to 40% of the snaps and he just looks better and he finishes plays by actually catching the ball, and if after the game, if he makes a mistake, he doesn't just say, I did my job, then like I will be much more in favor of Mitchell going forward. Thanks for your time, man.
Right. Yeah, thanks, man.
You got it. Zach Hicks, check him out on Twitter at Zach Hicks2. He does a great job covering the Colts. Writes over on SI.com as well. Make sure you check out the podcast, Locked On Colts. The time is now 317-228-1430. If you want tickets to Holiday World and Splash and Safari, proud sponsor of today's show, then make sure you call 317-228-1430. First caller, because we don't celebrate losers here. You got to be the first one in. And it looks like someone's already in when we come back here in about 4 minutes. Thoughts on Pacers and Thunder?
The best takes. Maybe. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, from head over there. And subscribe. Maybe watch it on Twitter, _ Jonathan Smith, or X, I guess, _ Jonathan Smith. If you want to watch the show there, you can follow me there as well. Or you can listen via that Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you find your apps. Now, the Indiana Pacers are going to continue the NBA Finals against the Oklahoma City Thunder tomorrow night. By the way, tomorrow I will be downtown at the District Tap from 10 to noon. The Dan Dockett Show will be there as well from noon to 3. So come down and see us as you get ready for Game 3 between the Thunder and the Pacers. Now, Game 2, just to kind of put a little bow on it, I know I talked about it a lot yesterday, a lot of negative stuff. Give Pascal Siakam the basketball. Tyrese Halliburton, please be more aggressive. I had a little bit more than that I didn't quite get to. So let's start with the three-point shooting. Pacers took 43s. That's way too many. 40 of their 82 shots came from 3. Now, if 40 of their 100 shots came from 3, then I wouldn't mind that as much. But half of your shots don't need to come from 3. They don't. And this is part of what Oklahoma City does to teams, right? They pack the paint. They make you shoot a bunch of threes. They are the opposite of what a lot of defenses in the NBA want to do. A lot of defenses don't want to give up the 3. The Thunder have no issue doing it. They don't. Like, they want to pack the paint and not allow you to get in there. And if you do get in there, then you're going to run into Chet Holmgren or Isaiah Hartenstein, two of the best rim protectors in the NBA. So this is an elite defense. They make life difficult on teams that want to get into the paint like the Pacers do. But if the Pacers want to win this series, they have to get more layups. They have to get more easy shots. They didn't have a paint point in that first quarter, and that's just not sustainable. Okay, the Pacers didn't get many easy buckets in game 1 or 2, right? Like, they only scored 34 points in the paint in both games 1 and game 2. That's just not enough. It's not enough. I know the Pacers are a great shooting team, but 40 of your 82 shots cannot come from 3. You need more easy buckets than that. You need more layups. You need more shots at the rim. That's what you need. And if you want a positive coming out of game 2, I do have a couple, because there were a couple things that the Pacers did, in fact, clean up after game 1. Pacers didn't turn the ball over 25 times. Instead, they turned it over 15 times. That is so much better. So much better. And that's the cap. If they turn the ball over more than 15 times, it's going to be pretty tough to beat this Oklahoma City Thunder defense. Okay? Anything over 15, it's going to be 15 is probably too many if we're being honest. Okay? They can't turn it over more than that if they want to win the series. So that was a step in the right direction. In addition to turning the ball over 10 less times in game 2 than they did in game 1, they forced 14 turnovers. That's a good thing, because part of how the Thunder beat teams is they win the possession game. They turn you over 18 times, and they only turn it over like 7 times themselves. They led the NBA in both turnovers forced per game and turnovers committed per game. So that was a major step in the right direction. The issue is the Pacers didn't capitalize on those live ball turnovers. They only scored 17 points off of the 14 Oklahoma City Thunder turnovers, and they only scored 9 fast break points. When the Pacers force a live ball turnover, it has to increase the pace of the game. Only 9 fast break points isn't enough for them to win. It's not. They had 9 steals. That's 9 live ball turnovers. And to only get 9 fast break points off of those isn't good enough. The Pacers in games 1 and 2 have really struggled to set the pace and maintain the pace. And there's a couple reasons for that. One, the Thunder haven't been pursuing offensive rebounds with their guards, whereas the Knicks were. Like, it felt like the Knicks sent everyone to the offensive glass. The Thunder, they're not doing that. Like, a shot goes up, everyone on the perimeter starts moving back on defense, and maybe Isaiah Hartenstein or Chet Holmgren will get on the glass to grab an offensive rebound. But, when you look at the 11 offensive rebounds that the Thunder had in game 2, a lot of them were long rebounds. Okay, like they make an obvious effort to get back when shots go up, and that's part of how they've been able to slow down the Pacers offense. They don't let them run. And if the shot goes in, there's no, inbound the ball to Halliburton. He throws it 70 feet down the floor to Siakam for a layup, like they did multiple times in that series against the Knicks. They have completely taken that away. The Thunder have. The other thing that the Thunder have done to kind of keep the Pacers from scoring in transition is they just bust their butts to get back on defense. Both of these teams play so hard, and it has been a theme in this series. Like, both teams are pot committed to not allowing the other team to score off turnovers. Both of these teams are doing everything they can to make the other team score in the half court. And, that's great on the Pacers' part. But this has been a half-court series so far. And if it continues to be played like this, then based off of what we've seen, we're going to see Coach Carlisle make adjustments, and I do think that we're going to see Tyrese Halliburton figure it out here at some point. But based off what we've seen in these first 2 games, if this continues to be a half-court series, then the Thunder are going to win because they have the best player. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has gotten whatever he wants so far in this series. And that's not entirely surprising just because he's an awesome player. But the Thunder's half-court defense has made things so much tougher on the Pacers. Like, the first 2 games have been half-court games. And that has to change. The Pacers have to find a way to speed the game up, to make it a little more of a full-court game. And part of that is going to be scoring off those live ball turnovers that the Thunder commit. The Thunder have been so good at speeding the game up on offense, where they'll be fast and they'll score in 5 or 6 seconds, but then they're able to slow the Pacers down. It's been really impressive to watch them do that in these first 2 games. So Pacers have to find a way to speed the game up in the final however many games of this series. But game 3, that's going to be something that I'm definitely looking at. We saw both teams throw out a little bit of zone in game 2. Felt like the Pacers were just searching for answers. Felt like they were just throwing everything at the wall, hoping that it'd stick. They ran 3 possessions of zone, and the Thunder scored on 2 of them. It did not last long. They've got to find a way to slow down Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and to keep everyone else from going crazy. I waxed poetic about this yesterday, so I won't do it again. They just have to find a way to keep Alex Caruso from scoring 20 points and to keep Aaron Wiggins from scoring 18 points. Because when the Thunder role players are hitting threes and you've got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander being himself, it's just really tough to beat this Thunder team. Offensively, Pacers are going to be fine. They're going to make shots. Tyrese Halliburton's going to find a way to get into the lane in game 3. I think he's going to be a little more aggressive. I just think he's too good and too smart of a player to not figure out how to score and get good shots against this Thunder defense. Okay, my concern is slowing down the Thunder offense. Okay, they can't allow Caruso and Wiggins to hit 9 threes between the 2 of them again. They had several possessions where they were just kind of chasing the ball around because Shai Gilgeous-Alexander broke the paint pretty easily, and that led to easy shots for their role players, and they have to fix that. Pacers defense is the most important thing that has to get fixed, because if they can get more stops, then they can bring the tempo up, and that will lead to more easy points. Here is Miles Turner after the game 2 loss, talking about the importance of being physical on defense.
It's a big part of this series. I think that we got to establish ourselves physically, just as they've done. See what's going to get called, see what's not going to get called, and see how the overall tone of the game is going. And it's got to be a much better collective effort, I think, defensively. I think we did a little bit of a better job in that first half, but it's got to be 4 quarters of sustained defense.
4 quarters of sustained defense, that's what they need. And look, 4 quarters of sustained defense should lead to more stops, and that should lead to them being able to rebound and then push and then hopefully speed the game up a little bit, because they definitely haven't been playing as fast as they want to in these first 2 games. And one way to increase the pace is to not take the ball out of the net repeatedly like they did in game 2. So the defense has to be a little bit better going forward. Good news, Colts defense should be better this year. The offense, I don't know, probably not. Albert Breer gave us an update on Anthony Richardson yesterday and what everything going on with his shoulder. I got that audio for you when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
World, it's here. The real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. You want to head over there and subscribe. Maybe watch it on Twitter, __ Jonathan Smith, if you want to watch the show there. Or maybe you're listening via that Indy Sports Ticket app, where you can not only listen to my show, but also the Dan Dockett Show. from noon to 3. And this story happened a few days ago. Didn't get to talk about it much because the Pacers have been on a roll. Aaron Rodgers to the Steelers happened. And I don't really know how it's going to go. I like Mike Tomlin. I think he's one of the best coaches in the sport. Aaron Rodgers is definitely an upgrade over Mason Rudolph and Will Howard. I like the Steelers' defense. DK Metcalf can make big plays down the field. I know they're going to run the ball with Arthur Smith, which is going to take some of that pressure off of Aaron Rodgers. And I think that if Aaron Rodgers can be 75 to 80% of who he used to be, then the Steelers are a legitimate playoff team. And I don't know how the Colts are going to make the playoffs this year, given how many great quarterbacks there are now in the AFC. Like there's too many quarterbacks better than what the Colts have for them to make the playoffs. And this roster around these quarterbacks, Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson, the roster's just not very good. It's pretty meh. So before we jump into the long list of quarterback situations in the NFL, better than what the Colts currently have, here is Albert Breer on the Rich Eisen show yesterday talking about Anthony Richardson's shoulder, kind of his uncertain future, and a little take from Albert here on Daniel Jones.
But it was the second day of OTAs that they shut him down. He's going to go visit with Dr. Neil Elatrash. I believe that's going to happen this week to go and get it checked out.
Oh, you don't want to hear that name, man.
And Elatrash was the one who did the surgery initially. So it's one of those, Rich, where it's like, I mean, when you're talking about like the soreness coming back in the shoulder, and no, he hasn't had surgery yet, but he's going to have more opinions on it. It just gets you worried, so I would say I take both of them very seriously because, anything to do with a quarterback's throwing shoulder, elbow, wrist, whatever is serious. But, when it's a repeat thing, that's where it's like, oh boy, so yeah, I think it seems, at least right now, like there's a really good chance Daniel Jones is going to be the starting quarterback for the Colts in week 1. And Anthony Richardson faces a lot of uncertainty going forward.
Albert Breer on the Rich Eisen show yesterday kind of laying it out for you. Anthony Richardson having to go back to the doctor who did the surgery on his shoulder. And, Daniel Jones seems like he's going to be the starter week 1, which isn't good for the Colts because here's the list of AFC quarterbacks better than Daniel Jones and also probably better than Anthony Richardson. Patrick Mahomes, obviously. Josh Allen, pretty obvious. Lamar Jackson, very obvious. Joe Burrow, very obvious. Aaron Rodgers, better than either one of the Colts quarterbacks right now. CJ Stroud is better than both of them. Trevor Lawrence is better than both of them. Bo Nix is better than both of them. Geno Smith is better than both of them. Justin Herbert, definitely better than both of them. Tua Tagovailoa, yes, I would take Tua over either one of the quarterbacks that the Colts have right now. Injury history and all. And Drake May. I would take all those guys before either quarterback that the Colts have. The Colts have, at best, the 13th best quarterback in the AFC. And it could be 14th. Like if Cam Ward comes out and if Cam Ward's awesome as a rookie, like that wouldn't surprise me. Like if he was better than Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones this year, like that would not be surprising. Even if he's not, you're probably not making the playoffs with the 13th best quarterback in your conference and the third best quarterback in your division. So many things have to break your way. So I don't think that the Colts are a playoff team this year. They're going to go like 5-12, 4-13, 3-14, somewhere around there. Because like when you go through their schedule, like they have the lesser quarterback in every matchup except for 2. Every matchup except for 2. And the 2 are the 2 times that they play the Titans. And look, maybe if Cam Ward's good right off the rip, I'm not going to be surprised by that. And if that happens, then the Colts have the worst, the lesser quarterback in every matchup this year in all 17 of their games. And that is like, that spells a lot of losses. And I get it. Colts went 8-9 last year with bad quarterback play and, a bottom 5 defense and all this kind of stuff. And maybe that gives you some hope that they're like, okay, that they can kind of, hold firm and be a tough out. I don't want them to be tough out. I want them to win football games. And I'm just not convinced that this football team is going to do that this year. And that's probably the best thing for them. The Colts need to hit the hard reset button. Jim Irsay was a great owner for a long time. I think he wanted to fire Chris Ballard last year, but he just wasn't in good enough health to conduct a full general manager search. With Carly Ursay now officially in charge of the Colts franchise, that means they can fire Chris Ballard at the end of the year. They can restart, and that's what this franchise needs. They need a new general manager, have him bring in his own head coach, and go get a new quarterback. Reset the franchise. And guess what? A lot of these players for the Colts, they're on the last year of their deal. Like, you can really kind of clear everything out, restart the franchise, draft, Nico Iamaleava, draft Arch Manning, draft, whoever you want to with that early first-round pick that you're probably going to have at the end of the year. Because this Colts team I don't think that they're going to be very good. Their ceiling, 9-8. I don't think that they can be any better than that. They win 10 games this year, I'll be stunned. I'll be shocked. Just because they don't have good enough quarterback play for that to happen. That's just the cold, harsh, simple reality of this Indianapolis Colts football team. So we're going to embrace and enjoy this Pacers run as much as we can. Game 3 tomorrow. That's pretty much all I'm going to talk about tomorrow. I can tell you that right now. Game 3 between the Thunder and the Pacers tomorrow. Gamebridge. That place is going to be rocking. I will be downtown at the District Tap from 10 to noon. The Dan Dockett Show will be downtown at the District Tap as well from noon to 3. We'll be doing our shows from there. Can't wait. That place is awesome. Good food, good alcohol, all the good stuff. It's going to be great. So that is, once again, tomorrow, noon or 10 to noon, my show, noon to 3, the Dan Dockett Show at the District Tap. Stop by, say what's up. It's going to be a blast. Pacers Thunder, Game 3 tomorrow night. I'll give you my full thoughts on that game tomorrow. It's going to be, like I said, a ton of fun. The Dan Dockett Show comes your way next. Sean McDonough at 2 o'clock to talk about the Stanley Cup Final. Mark Boyle, 1:30 to talk about your Indiana Pacers. Great loaded show. I will not be here for it. I got to go get these pearly whites checked out. And, so I'll talk to you tomorrow from 10 to noon. The Dan Dockett Show is set to come your way next.